the ordinary person in the community, whether they were Republican or not, were subjected to much of the same harassment and intimidation and fear as the Republican activist. And in terms of the ordinary Catholic who maybe did leave your area to go to work in places that were slightly dodgy, they always knew they were living with the threat that they could be killed by loyalists as well, just because they were Catholics. You know, because, I mean, the loyalists, if you look at the loyalists killed hundreds of people. There's only a handful of Republicans among them, you know. I don't know, 20, 30 Republicans out of hundreds killed by loyalists, 800 or something, you know. The vast majority were ordinary Catholics moving about their daily business because they worked off this thing that they wanted to terrorise the community as such. But yeah, I mean, by and large, you know, you knew, you knew you were a target, you accepted you were a target. It was a fact of life, right? It was, it went with the territory as far as I was concerned, and you just get on with it.
You talk about how loyalists killed a lot of innocent Catholics. What do you say to the loyalists is the same about the IRA?
I think they may do. Yeah, I think that that they may say that, but in fairness, I think if you look at the IRA attacks, you know, over most of the campaign, there were something like, if you, the scale of casualties, I think most of the people that the IRA attacked, by and large, were military targets. You know, I mean, British soldiers, you know, and something like around 300 British soldiers killed, 300 of the part-time soldiers that were here, the UDR, which was essentially a loyalist regiment, you know, like something like 97 or 98% Protestant, and recruited locally, basically to fight the IRA, and it replaced the old RUC specials. And again, I think there was something like around 300 of the RUC, which, I mean, wasn't exactly it wasn't a policing service. I mean, they moved around in heavily armed vehicles. I think if a young American wants an analogy about how the RUC presented themselves, have a look at footage of the old South African police going into the townships, because it was something the same. It was military vehicles, it was machine guns, you know, assault rifles, you know, all the kit of a soldier, right? And that's how they entered our communities. You know, they didn't come in to do normal policing work as such. So that was the bulk of the attacks that the IRA carried out. However, the IRA did kill civilians in attacks, killed civilians in bombings that went wrong. I mean, a lot of IRA volunteers were killed in bombings in the early period of the campaign as well, where bombs exploded prematurely. There were incidents where civilians were killed, where bomb warnings either weren't passed through properly, or there wasn't enough time. So, you know, I'm not going to say they're saying the IRA did kill civilians. They did kill Protestants during the conflict. However, I would say that in my own experience, the IRA tried very, very hard to avoid civilian casualties in terms of how they planned and executed their operations. And, you know, many operations were called off on the basis that civilians were close to British soldiers or RUC members at ambush locations. Mm-hmm. So that's how I see it. But I could understand that a loyalist looking at it, you know, isn't going to sit down and say, well, so it was just an inadequate warning, or someone made a human error, or whatever. For them, the result is if they have a relative killed or they've lost someone in an IRA attack, you know, they're quite entitled, in my view, to look at it as well. You know, the technicalities of what went wrong in your attack isn't my problem. For me, you've killed my loved one, or you have hurt someone belonging to me. So, you know, I can see why any Protestant or loyalist would see it in that sense. I think what they did see the IRA campaign as, in fairness, was an attack on, they would see it, I think, as their culture, right? I would see it as on their dominance in this state. You know, that for us, this thing of having like a privileged elite is non-negotiable.